Who is going to be the Rishi to Humza's truss?
John Swinney, SNP leadership favourite, backed transgender self-ID at 16 and an LGBT curriculum. So this is the guy who's... Well, he hasn't said no. They're saying in here that he's suggested he will run. It's not quite what happened. They stuck a microphone in his face and said, will you? And he said, I couldn't possibly say. So, yeah, it looks likely. But anyway, he has supported all these things in the past that we're not very keen on here.
Yeah.
For example...
And that have not proved to be great news for the SNP generally.
Well, no, exactly. So whether he'll have to...
Third time lucky.
I don't know whether he's going to have to change his mind and suddenly... decide he's not into net zero or self-ID or whatever. But currently, that's what's on his CV.
What's the famous saying about insanity, doing the same thing, expecting the results to change, you know? But I suppose with politics, sometimes the wind does change direction. But if anything, the wind has decisively moved against the SNP since they kind of... Oh, dear. What is wrong with them?
Well, he's an SNP career man, this guy. He joined them at 15, so imagine how many weird views you end up having or having to take. I mean, yeah, he's still favourite, though. I'm not sure. I mean, but you never really trust the front-runner, do you? At least when in the Tory elections, you don't. I've heard that Jenny Gilruth is an outside bet. She's currently fourth in the poll I saw. Right. Kate Forbes is second, and Neil Gray...
I was going to say, Kate Forbes, who was, like, neck and neck with Humza initially, and she was too Presbyterian or something for them, wasn't she?
They said she was too Christian. Although, actually, she does well with Muslims, really, because they like that she's just open about her faith. Yeah. And obviously, she's somewhat conservative on certain social issues, so they tend to prefer that. Yeah. Whereas Swinney, don't think they'll like. Yeah, Gilruth's doing well. Forbes, apparently, it's just not the right time for her. So I've heard, but who knows? You hear these
Also, hasn't
things.
this guy, he stepped in for 10 minutes before, so he's... Yeah. He knows...
Bit of experience.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like they probably need an Englishman to go up there and run it for them, don't they? Get them back on track.
He wants to go back in the EU, which I always thought was the most perverse position, independence, but in the EU. It's nonsense.
Well...
You're all right.
A Scotsman once said to me, almost confidentially, and I don't... Maybe this will be a controversial thing to say out loud, but he said this isn't the thing that they like to say out loud. I may have said it out loud on this show before. Scots don't like to admit it in so many words, but the thing about the EU is freedom of movement is good for Scots because most Scots who have any promise at all leave Scotland immediately and go to London. Wow. But any Bulgarians and Romanians who have promise might go to Glasgow or Edinburgh. And you can sort of see their point. They experience a permanent brain drain. Okay. And within the context of freedom of movement, they can be replenished from countries that are more economically... challenged than Scotland is. But if you grow up in Scotland and you have ambition, you tend to fulfil it south of the border. And it's very sad, and I do feel a certain amount of sympathy for that.
I already thought that was offensive, and you hadn't said the offensive bit. Actually, at that point. We're going to get so many emails.
It's the Bulgarians I feel sorry for.